this is not the way the council wants to go, we wouldn't start working on it.
Okay.
But if there's a flip, we would run out of time to actually make.
The recording has started.
We could
Okay,
flip, but not flip. We couldn't flop. We could flip, but not flop.
Yes.
The flopping.
Well, I just.
On your name last time. Huh? Congratulations.
Hello.
Oh, thank you.
You can.
I was laughing
I got
because.
your email. I have been in meetings.
Carla,
I am trying to, I'm gonna get caught up on the 50 or so emails that I got today.
Right, and you were the ones that had the most, but she didn't help me. Hello. How are you? Good, how are you? Good. Nice to see you. Nice to see you as well. Let's see.
We are at 5 p.m. I will call this meeting to order. I am here, Councilmember McClymans and Councilmember Rock are here. Do we have a motion to approve our minutes from the October 1st meeting? I did not see any changes. I guess we don't need a motion. I guess, so we approve our minutes? Yeah, okay. And we don't have any department. So our discussion action items are AB 2467, Resolution R 2467, a public hearing by the City Council of the City of Bonney Lake, Pierce County, Washington for the 2024-2029 6-year transportation improvement program. Okay, so is that you?
That is.
Ken, you take it
Good
away.
evening. Good to see you, Councilmember Fulton, McClymans and Rock on this beautiful fall drizzly, color changing evening.
I had to wear my pink to cheer me up.
That's
Have
right.
any guests that have joined? There was somebody I was wondering if she was going to join, Wendy Schwartz.
No.
No. Okay, good.
And I'm got all the information. I was sending her an email, but I wanted to brief you guys first and
Yeah.
then send out the email.
I invited her to come
Thank
back.
So, in your
Sorry,
packet,
Ken.
no, that's fine. All good questions. In your packet is, good looking map. Thank you, Adam, for that. That shows where these projects are. As I was preparing this, I presented this a couple different times. I've been thinking, what are the questions that are in your mind? And not being able to read your mind, the questions that were in my mind, if I'm sitting in your seat, is why do we do this? And three reasons that I came up with is this is a list of projects that staff are going to go after and try to chase funding for. And it gives council a check-in with staff annually to say, hey, these are good projects that we should be doing. The other reason is it makes them eligible for federal funding. The two federal funding sources that are readily available to two different projects on here that you've received federal funding for are the roundabout at Angeline Road and Veterans Memorial. The other one that is available as a set aside is the 214th, basically from around Safeway south to city limits. So there's no money. There's dollar signs here. Those are my estimates about what the project cost is, but there's no commitment of funds. We're not proposing to spend money. It's just my estimate of what I think it'll take to get it done. This plan here will change based on some things also that we have going on that council's put into action, and it's the safety action plan. And I presented that a couple of months ago, but that looks at our crash data citywide and then comes up with spot or citywide improvements to mitigate those crashes. The other thing that we're working hard on is your transportation plan update. The mobility plan. So I'm here tonight to answer questions on any of the projects that are on here. What the project does, what the description is, why it's for, what are we doing it for, what problem it's trying to solve. And Kelly's favorite question, what happens if we don't do it? So I'm gonna shut up and stop talking. The way I've kind of got it laid out in your packet is, the first one is your intersection improvements. The next one is your roadway improvements. On back is the set aside that we do for your ADA improvements, your paving, your chip seal, and then there's a map. So that's it.
I just want to add, approving the TIP doesn't commit the council to spending any dollars. It is simply a plan that we're working toward. It doesn't commit the council to any dollar or authorize any expenditure.
So I do have a question, but by setting each project aside that you see that we need for our transportation improvement program and our safety action plan, by having all of these listed for the next 5 years, that will actually make us eligible for the grants. So as long as we have these set aside for projects that we want to do and we have them named, then we become eligible for federal grants as well as state grants.
It's an excellent question. Yes, I'm gonna repeat it to make sure I understand. Having it on this plan makes us eligible for grants, correct? No outside funding agency, it could give you $1 unless it's been through this process, vetted by you guys to say, yep, that's good. I just can't, I'm on my own, say, oh yeah, I give the money like money. It's gotta go through this public process.
And we update it every year. This is actually our, for 2024 update. We're a little bit behind the window. So you'll do this again in April, May of next year.
What if we are granted funds, but our funds are our numbers are significantly off because like you said, they're a rough estimation. Does that matter? It doesn't matter if we're not committed to a figure or receiving grant funding. If, like I said, if our figure were significantly over, would that affect that?
Sure. No, again, another great question. Make sure I understand it. So if I'm off here by $100,000, $300,000, and we use the numbers in here to go for a grant, does that hurt us? When let's say that we move ahead with this and we go for some grant funding on the roundabout, which is what we've talked about doing, right? The reason why that is $6,002,002 and $7.60 is because that's an engineer's estimate that we did when we applied for the last grant funding. So that one is a really good number. As you go further down the list, they're much more broad brush. And if you were, let's say that you pointed and I want you to go for grant for this one or this one, I would do an engineer's estimate, really tighten it up as much as I could to alleviate that. And then I throw a 30% contingency on the top of it to account for inflation and how long it takes you to get that money, how long it takes you to design it, so that those things are accounted for. Yeah.
So, what in this plan is, got right-of-way requirements that we haven't already accounted for? No, we don't. Do we need right-of-way for any significant portion of this plan?
Number one project is the roundabout.
Mhm.
Our preliminary design right now, we need a little sliver of right of way. And the funding actually pays for that. So
And the owner sounds like is willing to sell it, so it won't be a condemnation.
yeah, it's ironically, last week I was at a right of way training class using federal funds. And there is a process that you go through, and I will share, it's very favorable to any owners. Yes, we haven't advanced the design far enough. On the 28th, actually, we're going to be interviewing 4 consultants to see who's the most qualified to do that design for us. But right now, it's just a schematic with a circle and a lane of asphalt laid around it. I don't know how much we need for sure for me to tell you, oh yeah, we need 200 square feet. We're not there yet.
Okay.
There is a small potential for that one property owner.
Mhm. Well, so an example is my first brush with the tip was over here with the apartments down here at the end of the street, right? This whole street back here was a very narrow one lane road, right? And they put this road on the tip so that they could prepare for the apartments. And when I door knocked all those homeowners, they were furious. They were like, no, because we wound up taking a significant portion of all their property. If you drive down that road today, the city took quite a bit of property from all those, right? Owners, and they showed up at that council meeting and said no. Right? Now, Ken says is right. This isn't a commitment. It's just a plan, right? So, but right away is, kind of in here, right? And then from a policy perspective, I think we should make sure, we say whether or not we think it's a transportation plan that assumes getting a lot of right of way. Is that something we want to, is that a policy we want to put forward? I don't think we're saying that though, right?
No, most of the projects on here, and the ones that do require right of way are the ones that are way down at the end of the list.
Mhm.
The only ones that I know that would require right of way are, the Entwistle Road extension. The one that is the extension of 100th Street B12, we already have the access easements that the owner signed 20 years ago. We would just have to get their consent to build the road. They've already given us the easements 20 years ago, and it would just building within those easements. A road that if they develop their property, they would have to build. So sometimes those ones, they're a little bit more willing, but there's not a lot of big right-of-way swath things on these.
But agreeing to move this forward doesn't mean that we are agreeing to take anybody's property or even necessarily complete one of these projects. That's all agreed upon as we move down the line.
Correct. Another example that's on the list is my thumbs under grinding over like 214th. So from 410 to city limits. My preliminary look, if you pull up Pierce County Public GIS, we don't own the sidewalk on 214th in front of Safeway. I have no idea. I don't know if that's real or right, but if you take federal money, work on that project, you gotta update all the ramps. You gotta open the sidewalk, but they have funding opportunities for that. So it would be many, many steps, like you described, before we would go through that path and reach out. This is just a plan of what we think is best to improve some of the traffic snarls in town.
Yeah, like we don't know why the Safeway, our city sidewalk is on the Safeway property.
When Safeway was built, were they
Yeah.
required to put in the
Yeah, I mean,
sidewalk on their property and they just retained it?
Or
Imagine.
or we didn't follow through with a dedication deed at the time that they built it. There could have been a paperwork snafu
Mhm.
20 years ago, so they're paying property taxes now. So that's the other side of it. Sometimes when the improvements is already there, they're okay giving it back to us, because now if
They
there's
don't
a,
have to maintain it.
they don't have to maintain it. If there's a slip and fall, it's on the city, not on their private property. A lot of times people just don't know.
But the other thing I've ran into is that the GIS is just dead wrong. There's something that didn't get in there. And if you actually go out and survey it, oh yeah, we actually do own it. So, but at this stage, we're not getting that far down into the weeds.
Instead of like paying to have it surveyed, do you guys work with a title company where they can pull property maps and you could look at a property map based on that instead of paying for a survey?
We do have to do the survey though, because the survey is the only way you're actually gonna know physically when you walk out there where the stake gets driven in relationship to the sidewalk.
You're going to want to do a survey anyway during construction to know where you're at, where you have the right to work, where you don't have the right to work. So you may need to get a construction easement, right? To go beyond, we just need to know where that limit is so that we're treating the property owner fair with what we need to them to build the project. That is an excellent source of information though. Title reports are great. Yes.
So the $8 million for B2.
Yes.
Does that include any of the sewer money, or is that just the street CIP?
That includes everything. And I tried to describe that, and that's why the description's so dang long.
Right.
So that includes, to answer your question, gravity sewer. That includes, removing the hump out of the road, and the east leg of it, replacing the water main during that section. That includes, getting rid of the mud puddle that's in the northeast corner of it, doing some storm improvements, undergrounding the power, services to the house, 12-foot sidewalk, so that's, this is this is a number where you would want to spend some time trying to really get it down, because that's a huge number. It's the biggest project on your thing. So, you would, before you move forward with the grant or move forward with the design on that, you'd want to really see how bad you wanted underground power. Or if the sidewalk really needed to be on that side of the road and that wide, you'd want to do some value engineering to try to get that number down. This is a good planning number to build everything that's in that description.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Good.
So where do sidewalks fit in?
And on the,
Are they part of this hip?
yeah, on the next page,
Okay.
we have a sidewalk set aside.
Mhm.
And then we have one last project, one last project that we've got to do, and then the council will reprioritize a new list, but I'll turn it over to Ken.
Do we have a graphic that kind of, this is a brand new committee, right?
Yeah,
And Tom's not here, Dan's not here. I was here the last time we approved like a sidewalk sort of plan overview. Do we want to go back and revisit that with the committee?
we will be doing that as part of the comp plan update. So in the next couple of weeks, you're gonna be getting how we want to do our prioritization metrics from a point system and have council weigh in on what points are assigned to which of the different criteria. And out from that, we'll produce an initial projects list. And then we'll begin to talk about prioritizing those projects. And that will be done as part of the comp plan, and we'll have a priority 1 through whatever, and every year we'll build as much as we can. Ken did that Drew did that a couple of years ago, and, we have 2 projects left on that prioritization process. One was Kelly Lake Road, which I think is getting ready to go. And then in the 25 biennium, we'll be doing the Church Lake Curve. That was the 2 projects that were on that list.
Yeah, Kelly Lake is the one down by 214th, and then the curve is further up there on Church Lake, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. To add to what Jason said is that, I want to give Drew a lot of credit. Last summer, we knocked off Angeline, and then we're getting ready to knock off a gap in Kelly Lake Road that's really needed, especially if you drive down that road and anytime during time when kids are getting picked up by school buses, that sidewalk in that gap is sorely needed.
Can't we, is there like a sidewalk relocation program? Can we like take sidewalks from Sky Island and? How does it be like they have an excess of sidewalks?
I think that was done privately.
I thought it would go over like that.
Good idea, though. But yeah, now that we can pick them up and move them.
Yeah.
So this, basically, we need to do this in order to move forward with anything, and this is something that has to be done annually, right? So I think, and there's no money attached, so I'm thinking, does anybody have any more questions on this?
You said that this is reviewed and updated annually.
And we're getting another review, in April of 2025.
We should have done this by June of this year, but with everything that happened in the department, we're woefully behind, and we tried to convince WashDOT to just let us do it next year and play catch up, and they said no. So we're doing one now that's actually for 2024 through 2029. In April or May of next year, we're gonna come back and do a whole new 6-year tip, and then you do a whole new 6-year tip every single year.
To add to what Jason, the last reason why I don't even mention this, but it's in your agenda briefing, it's an RCW. You do it annually every year. And, but that's, I don't think that's the reason why you should do it. You should do it because it's a check-in. Yeah.
So, I gotta tell you kind of, I was at a high school swim meet with my grandchildren, and somebody asked about roundabout on 214. And, I think every parent in the stands was like all over me about everything roundabout, right? Because it's kind of a hard problem, right? So the roundabout at 214, probably isn't, I mean, the whole thing in the science of roundabouts, traffic flow, is you want to chain roundabouts together. When you put a roundabout between two stoplights, right? I don't know really what you're doing, right? Because you're creating a stochastic, it's a mathematical problem. Stochastically, the queue line that goes in and out of the roundabout is really dictated by the stoplights, right? You get a better probability of flow when you have roundabouts chained together, right? And a speed limit less than like 45, 50 miles an hour.
I had friends for dinner last night, and that is exactly what they talked about, is we would love to see a roundabout right in that exact same spot.
Yeah, so it was funny because it was funny because I've never seen so many people interested in a traffic discussion as they were in roundabouts. I have a funny take on roundabouts, but most people were like, they're kind of okay with it, but they're not okay with it. They really want to know that they're adding value, right? And I'm like, well, I can't say any of our roundabouts yet are adding value. Costco should have been a roundabout, right? And then we should have put roundabouts in a few places. So I'm kind of curious about how we're picking and choosing roundabouts. Are we ever going to put another signal?
And we
Yeah.
turned down the roundabout at 214,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
Sure. So I bring this up with you.
Church Lake is a good example.
Uh-huh.
So when we did that intersection control analysis last year, we looked at evaluating a roundabout and we looked at evaluating a signal.
Mhm.
And based on matrix of safety and cost and the amount of right of way needed at that intersection, the recommendation was to do a traditional signal. Right? And then when we did the intersection control analysis for Veterans Memorial Drive and Angeline, the roundabout was the better value. So we do evaluate both options and then make a recommendation which is the best fit for all the different flow patterns. And the nice thing about the Randall and Angeline and Veterans Memorial Drive, it does maintain that consistent traffic flow that we currently have versus creating a new stop point in the system. And the same thing happened at 224. You would be creating a new stop point in the system versus a flow through. Ken, as an engineer.
Yeah, no, going back to your question at 214th, that is A4. It's the fourth one down on your intersection. Not a roundabout. It's going out and getting some new counts to verify what your hypothesis is. If you did put one there, would it connect? Would it help? Would it improve? But I can tell you when I'm leaving at 5 o'clock at night, driving west on 96th, you can't take a left because it's backed up all the way down to Sumner Buckley Highway. You got to do something there. So
That one,
You've done
we're,
your own survey.
that one we're going back.
Yeah,
and reevaluate to whether a roundabout or signal should be in there.
Yeah.
Because there's been significant changes since that last ice was.
So were you on council when we were rejecting the roundabout?
No, that happened right before I got elected.
Right, so if I remember the discussion at that time, the discussion went something like this. A couple of council members did a lot of research, even went over to Spokane, went over down to Fife, and we, tried a few different roundabouts in the area for high traffic, high speed, right? Because roundabouts aren't really, what's the speed limit that's recommended to a roundabout?
Well, the one
Like
that I
40?
think they're designing is 40.
Yeah, not 55 or 60, right? I think they're.
I was thinking slower, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just wondering, but I remember the conversation went kind of like this. The state is bound and determined to put roundabouts in. So we were told, if we don't do a roundabout 214, we're not gonna get a traffic improvement. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes to that location, we have a much higher uphill battle because it's a state highway. And our authority becomes less than other streets throughout the city.
Does that affect granting like Angeline?
No.
For the record, I voted, but I did the homework, I did the math, right? And I was like, okay, because I just want to make sure when we do our tip, right? I really wanted to have this discussion because I'm like, it seems like we're inconsistent with the usage and not consistent with what they say the application is, right? They say the application for flow is to, chain them together and not mix signalized and roundabouts, right? So Angeline works because it's far enough away from Locust, right? But what about 190? Is it 198 down there? That
192nd.
192nd? It's far enough away from that signal, so there's not a flow impact?
Because it's currently a free flow situation right now. Right, so if you put a signal in, you'd actually be creating a mid-break in that flow pattern, whether the roundabout's more of a simultaneous flow, which is what it's currently operating as.
Okay,
I think the big thing is that every time, like they're evaluating each time what is a better option, which is exactly what I wanted to hear, is every time they're analyzing an intersection or creating a stop, they're saying what's better here, a roundabout or light.
well, we need to make sure that's the case, because I told you the whole thing about 214, because there is a predilection in the state planning to say prefer roundabouts.
And they
Right?
do,
That was a very clear message.
Okay.
So that's my concern, is
Okay.
that, because I'm trying to explain to myself why we aren't consistent about the placement, right? Why wasn't there a roundabout at Costco, right? Why aren't we putting roundabouts when we look at these other signals? If the state is dead set on roundabouts, Costco would have made a lot of sense, right? It was a brand new intersection, right? Very expensive too, right? Like 25 million bucks. or
oh, that much, but yeah, it was a lot of money.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to understand it, and I'm not completely sure what you want is happening, right? I think the state does have an influence, right?
Okay.
And that's what I'm trying to get at, is where is that influence at?
I think that's part of the negotiations with staff and the state. I do know the state wants to take all of the signals from 233rd all the way through Buckley and out past Buckley and turn them into roundabouts. So from 224th on, it's envisioned that it will be roundabouts all the way.
Can they turn the bridge into a roundabout?
I think that.
They're planning to put, I think, just on the other side of the bridge. That's how they plan to alleviate that.
Really?
They plan to put in a roundabout right there.
On the King County side?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is going to be part of this 6-year TIP project plan, right? Is looking into all of these traffic lights being turned into whatever they need to be turned into.
In your plan in front of you is
Yeah.
updating the traffic counts at 214th.
Mhm.
So, and running the crank on that model again to answer your question. Why? What is the best? And here's why. So,
Okay.
And one of the matrices we use is how much right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was one of the reasons we rejected the roundabout at West Tap, so we would require huge right of way takes. And knowing the
And
council.
you said, no way Kelly's going for that.
For lack of a better word, yes. Knowing
I
the
don't
I'm
want
on
them
board
to
with
read my
Kelly.
mind. I don't want them to read my mind. I'm trying to help staff by
Well,
letting them know.
No, it's just, we know that the council's policy position is they don't want to be in the position of taking lots of right of way. So if that becomes a line, that just becomes one of the matrices by which you're judging improvements. It might cost a little bit more to do a roundabout, but you're having no right of way take. Right? So that's just how we're evaluating. That's one of our evaluation tools. And most cities don't use how much right of way is gonna have to be taken. But we know the council is very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
So something else that was really funny was, I had 3 people ask me about the bump on 214th. Between 410 and Sumner Buckley Highway. They're like, are you guys ever gonna straighten that out? I'm like, why would we ever straighten that out, right? But some people think it's important.
And it's a county road.
it's in the county. Yeah. That is quite a curve and a hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It slows them down though.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 2 more items on the agenda and we've taken some time on this. So, what is the recommendation? Is this to go on the consent agenda as your recommendation? This is, RCW has got to be done anyway, regardless, but, it's not costing the city any money.
It would actually, well, I would say this one doesn't, because we have to do the public.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
This one does have to
I
have a
have that
public
written
hearing,
down.
so.
Okay, so we need to put this on the, full council. Correct?
Correct, yeah,
Yeah,
and to add
okay.
to what Jason said, yes, the public hearing is scheduled for the November 12th on your agenda briefing in the bottom right.
So we'll get another opportunity to talk about this, putting it on the full council. All right, so we're going to
When
move
are
on.
we-
Is everybody
Sorry,
okay?
full
Yeah.
council for the 12th?
What's, well, no, would be full council once the public hearing's done, so it'd
Yeah,
be
so for the next one.
the
next one.
12th, 23rd of November,
Okay, thank you.
or well,
26th.
26th
No,
of November.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we are moving on to AB 24-109, Resolution 24-109, authorizing a professional services agreement with parametrics for the TMDL and the SMAP support. Will be page 13 on our agenda.
Okay, so for Agenda Bill 24-109, authorizing a professional services agreement with parametrics for TMDL and SMAP support. SMAP, I'll just start with the acronym. SMAP stands for Stormwater Action Plan, and I apologize, I did not have these attachments in the packet, so I made some paper packets. I know we're a little pressed for time here, so I'll try to hurry.
There-
You bet.
We can share.
Thank you. So for the SMAP implementation, the city is implementing the stormwater action plan in 3 phases. Phase 1 we're complete with, and it included the development of the SMAP planning document. The professional services agreement for phase 1 was approved per Agenda Bill 23-16 on February 14th, 2023. And the SMAP was completed in September of 2023. So the main component of the SMAP that was completed in phase 1 was to delineate the basins inside city limits. That'll be page 1 on your paper packet. And the permit is requiring us to select a basin where we think could benefit the most for stormwater quality retrofitting, or what basin we feel we want to protect. And so we chose the Lower Fennel Creek for a few reasons. It's there's 2 lift stations in that particular basin that are critical lift stations. Lift station 19 at the south end and lift station 17 on the north end. The city also invested millions of dollars into the Fennel Creek Trail network, and the majority of which that trail network is in the Lower Fennel Creek Basin. So that is an area we want to target for protection. We also have a stream gauge plan for 2025 installation at the south end of the Fennel Creek Basin for Fennel Creek monitoring. And then for phase 2 of this map, it includes the design of the stormwater quality retrofit projects, which we're seeking approval for with this agenda bill. The proposed projects are bioswales along Angeline Road in 3 separate segments, which are included in your paper packets, 3 through page 3, starting on page 3. So the first bioswale, it's about 2,000 million feet. And has a opinion of probable cost of $213,000. Bioswale 2 is approximately 1,300 million feet. And has a opinion of probable cost of $229,000. And Bioswale Suite 3, which is located about approximately 101st Street, so near Copperfield, with about 1,000 linear feet. And has a opinion of probable cost of $216,000. And then phase 3 will include the construction of the water quality retrofit project. So in this case, it's either bioswales. So for the TMDL, this is new for us, in our 24 to 29 MPDS permit. It's for Fennel Creek and it's for fecal coliform. So basically, the TMDL is like a way to monitor the health of a water body. So in our case, for Fennel Creek, the threshold is 100 colonies, 100 bacteria colonies per 100 milliliters of water. 100 milliliters of water is about 0.42 cups. I had to look it up. We don't really work with milliliters a lot. So. So we'll need some support with developing this program. I mean, I understand the process, very technical, documents that, ecology sends us about collecting samples and, putting 0.42 cups of water in a membrane that you then insert into a petri dish and then incubate for 48 hours at 112 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you count the bacteria colonies that are generated from that to see if you, met that threshold. But I mean, there's really a lot more to it than that, about collecting the samples, where to collect the samples, how to collect the samples, what containers you use, how you transport them, what lab you go to. So, we're looking for support on this, to develop a quality assurance project plan, which is required by ecology, that we have to send it. So they can take a look at what we're required to do.
Well, this was approved in 2023 for the $150,000 budget, correct?
Yes.
And so the budget is actually under the 150K budget that was approved in 2023. And this is required testing that we need to do. Or,
For the TMDL, yes.
yeah,
Yeah, so the way it works is, I have to report in our annual report, starting in 2025, every step that we've done till we get to our final report of, our results, which is due in 2029, but I still have to tell them, okay, we've developed, like, for next year, tell them that, hopefully, that we tell them we've developed our quality assurance project plan, we developed our SOPs, and then 2026, tell them, we've sampled, these are our results, and so on and so forth for 27, 28, and then in 29, we'll give them our final report on all the years that we've analyzed Fennel Creek and all the samples we've taken.
So, but we chose Fennel Creek,
No,
they did,
the state
the state,
chose,
the
yes,
state is choosing Fennel Creek.
correct.
Does the state manage the sample collection process? They send someone out to do it, or is that something that you guys do and then take to a lab for
We do it.
processing? You have to do it. And how often does it have to be done? How often are they analyzing?
Well,
samples?
and that's part of the quality assurance project plan that we will develop. And,
They don't tell you what the requirement is up front, like, hey, we expect this annually or semi-annually or.
well,
quarterly?
we report annually on our progress,
Mhm.
but, every year will be different, in terms of what we're required to report. So in 25, we'll report on our plan.
Okay.
This is what we're planning to do. And these are the SOPs that we've developed to, follow through with what our plan is, and then we'll send that to them. And then-
SOP,
Standard.
Yes.
operating stage.
And then in 26, we'll have to give them the results or the update of what we're doing.
Do we know how often we'll have to test the water in Fennel Creek?
I don't really know.
Or is that gonna come out of the quality assurance plan?
It'll be developed it'll be included in the quality assurance plan. But how many did they do in Shelton?
I had to read the same, yeah, it was annually,
Okay.
and you had to make sure and do it that you're doing it at a time when you were gonna get swept off your feet. So you were doing it in June, July, and August, not
Okay,
November,
not
December,
everything.
January.
Interesting. You think
So-
more bacteria would grow during summer when the water's more stagnant and warm?
So that's when you were doing your sampling.
Oh, they make you do it then?
Yeah, so,
They're
yeah.
requiring, I thought you got to choose when you did it.
No,
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
sometime and it's safety
Okay.
was really.
Well, I mean, we can technically propose whatever time of year we want. That doesn't necessarily mean ecology will approve it though.
Okay, okay.
So are we afraid of having too high of a fecal count, Fennel Creek?
Well, I mean,
I mean, we don't have a lot of wildlife, right? And there's no cows in Kelly.
Do
Well,
we
there are
have
cows.
septic
They-
around
they-
there
they do
anywhere?
have
The biggest
That's the
threat
real
cattle.
concern is
is-
septic.
the biggest threat is
The cattle right on Fennel
lift
Creek.
station 17 is right on
Oh, yeah,
Fennel Creek.
yeah.
Lift station 19 is on the south end of Fennel Creek. I'll share a quick story. I know we're running out of time. Young engineering technician was traveling down Angeline Road, many years ago. Sunny August day, probably 80 degrees, clear blue skies. Gets to about Copperfield, maybe one more block, and then water's running down the road. Pull over, obviously that's something that's not common. Could be irrigation, it could be water main, it could be water service. So what had happened was, the ground was basically erupting like a volcano. And what it was, there was a split in the sewer force main from 19 to 17. So every time it turned on, it was erupting. And so, because it was so many years ago, our permit program wasn't set up to respond like we are now. So I'm sure that discharge went into our conveyance system, the Willowbrook conveyance system, and then to the Willowbrook wet pond, which discharges to Fennel Creek. So it probably went into Fennel Creek. But those are the kind of things that happen. Not very often, but it does happen. So
You just hope it doesn't happen around the time that your water samples are done. Get the bleach.
yeah, yeah. So that's an area that we want to try to protect.
Yeah, I think lift station 17 is our scary one.
Yeah.
But then
for
you
sure.
just know to exceptionally monitor that area, right?
I'm sorry.
We,
Just repeat again.
once this is in place, then you would know, hey, we have to keep really close tabs on that station to make sure that it's always maintained at an excellent standard.
And we're not only that, but we're targeting with our whole stormwater maintenance program, catch basin rehab, catch basin cleaning, CCTV, pipe video inspection. We're targeting that area also. We're required to, but it's just another thing that we're implementing in that area.
So it would just be at the entrance and the exit of the basin?
The TMDL sampling,
Yeah,
I think we can, I think it doesn't say specifically in the permit language, but I think that the sampling location is probably gonna be at the bridge. At the south end,
Right there by Victor Falls.
the Victor Falls, yeah, the switchback, yeah. Up to the school.
And then by using the parametric, we're getting a savings because they're already familiar with our system and they know that they're the ones that we always use and it is approved through the program where we
Yeah, they're
get
one of
our
our
contractors,
contractors.
yeah.
Yeah, they also developed the phase one as well.
Mhm. All right, so this is already an approved budget, so it's not really spending money that we haven't already approved. So should we go ahead and just put this on a consent agenda, or what do you feel?
Consent.
All right, so we will sign that.
I'll give you that.
And then we're gonna go ahead and move on to, AB 24.
Is that on October 22nd, like next week?
Then,
On the last item, sorry.
oh,
Consent
what date
agenda.
do we want to put that on the consent agenda?
Next week.
We're not here next week, are we?
Yeah, council has a meeting.
Is it not the 29th?
Oh, it's the 22nd.
That's okay. Never mind.
Not the fifth Tuesday.
And I need you to sign that one. I had you sign the wrong one. I apologize.
Tuesday. I haven't learned to count Tuesdays yet.
Better make sure I don't need to change that one then.
Well, here after the next discussion, I'll see if you need to change it.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we are on to AB 24-110, resolution AB 20 or R 24-110, and that is the hearing examiner services, and that would be on page 37 of our packet. You want to move down to that? And is that you, Jason?
Yep. So we currently have Phil Albrecht under contract to be our appellant hearing examiner and hearing examiner pro tem. The appellant hearing examiner hears appeals of code enforcement related matters, to include all those decisions. Plus, if the primary hearing examiner is not available, they serve as the hearing examiner pro tem. Under the city's rules, the first contract we sign with the hearing examiner can only be for a year, and then it's reevaluated, and we can sign up for a 4-year contract. Staff has been really happy with Phil Albrecht's services he provided to the city. So we're asking that his contract be renewed for another 4 years. And also he will continue to serve as the appellant hearing examiner and hearing examiner pro tem for the city. For those who are new to the committee, the hearing examiner is a hearing body that is for quasi judicial matters. They are required to be attorneys. And so when we have people appealing their code enforcement cases, when they don't think the fines we issued are correct, or they don't think that what they did was a violation, this is the body they go to have those things adjudicated. We do not charge
The person.
the person.
Yeah.
The person.
The unelected.
Yes, they are unelected. The reason that we propose to use the hearing examiner system is if we were to have the council be that adjudicator, they could not talk to their constituencies, because they are serving in a judge and jury, a judge role. So they have to serve, they can't, so if their constituents want to call them and talk to them about a matter, they would have to literally say, I can't talk to you, and hang up the phone. Which creates a lot of conflicts and concerns for city councils, because you're here to listen to your contingencies. So by having a third party hearing examiner system, the council can still act in their role as the council. There is the aggrieved party can go to the hearing examiner. We can bring forward anything that the council wants us to bring forward to the hearing examiner on those matters. They are independent. They're not directly overseen by us. That's why we have an outside consultant. And they weigh the matters judicially and then make a decision. We don't currently charge for code enforcement appeals. So that doesn't become a financial burden for people who are unable to pay the fine or pay the fee to file an appeal. They can file an appeal.
The city picks up the bill for that.
We pick up the bill.
Okay.
At least on the code enforcement side.
So how many code enforcement appeals have we had that he's adjudicated?
I think he has had 3
In how long of a time period?
in a year.
4 years, 1 year, okay.
We try not to go to appeal, but there's some times where there needs to be a third party mediator that weighs their arguments and our arguments.
Can we get how do I find out what those appeals were and when his decision?
One of them was a shoreline case, in which he actually reduced the penalty that we had initially assessed and provided the applicant more time. Another 2 we were actually able to come to terms with the applicant and be able to bring a joint recommendation to the hearing examiner. I can get you those cases, but there hasn't been one where he just completely ruled on the city's behalf.
How many code enforcement violations have we issued in the last year?
We currently have, I think, 200 offenses. Then we are all
How
about,
many not including mine?
I don't know, you have one, I try to stay out of it. But we are more of a reactive system. There are some areas where we are proactive, but we're mainly reactive, which means citizens are contacting us saying, we believe there's a violation here, and then we investigate it. Our whole goal isn't to issue fines or to cause problems, it's to get the property into compliance. And we use lots of tools to work them into compliance. But there's times where property owners just, they don't want to do it, and we didn't have to, there's other steps you take.
Well, we did talk about the attorneys actually have quite
Yeah.
a bit of leeway to help out,
Yeah, so one of the things that
make decisions.
we did do, and that's a great point, Chair Fullerton. One of the things that we were noticing, we were getting a lot of civil penalty appeals, and a lot of them were, we agreed that we should remove the fee because they've come into compliance, but we didn't have a mechanism to do that at the staff level. So the council amended the code year and a half ago to give the city attorney authority to settle the civil penalty cases. So if we feel like they've made all the improvements or they've corrected the violation, then the city attorney can negotiate either completely removing the penalty, or they can reduce it. And we try to do that step before we get to the appeal, so that we can handle those things in-house, because we're not there trying to get fines. That's just, we're trying to motivate people to get into compliance. So that was one big thing we did. We also have voluntary correction agreements, which gives people a significant amount of time to come into compliance. And then we also have work plans that give people time to come into compliance. They're not easy cases, and they range all over the place. The ones that we're more proactive about is when there's a life safety issue or there's an illicit discharge into our stormwater system. Those are where we are more proactive in those matters. But
What's an example of a life safety issue?
adding on to building your house without permits.
Okay.
We have had some people that have built entire houses without building permits. Doing alterations in commercial structures that don't have permits and don't file life safety provisions. We had recently an illicit discharge where a construction site didn't manage their stormwater, and a bunch of dirt poured into our stormwater conveyance system. And we've had to deal with that. Leaky trucks pouring hydraulic fluid into our conveyance system. Those are the ones that we're more proactive about. A lot of our code enforcement cases actually come from what we call requests for action, where a citizen has actually noticed something and has
A complaint.
filed a complaint, and we've gone and looked into it. But the only time Phil actually gets involved is when we get to the point. Yeah, and our recommendation is to continue to have Phil on staff to hear those cases when those times arise. Because you can't find it, you can't go do the contract the day you need them. You need to have it in place. He doesn't charge us a retainage fee, so the months we don't use him, there's no fee. He only charges us when there's an actual hearing.
When he was first hired, his fees were compared, just.
Yes.
Yeah, that was all fine.
Yeah, and he's charging, I think, $215 an hour, which is less than what our other hearing examiner was charging us, who's the prime, and less than what we're seeing in our current request for proposals for the prime hearing examiner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Phil's one of the most recognized attorneys. He does a lot of the land use training for planners. He's an expert in this area of expertise, and is sought out by AWC and other training organizations to provide training to attorneys on land use matters and also staff. So, and he's And I will say he is fair and balanced. I know the concern is always, since he's under our contract, he's gonna be making decisions in our favor. That's not been my experience. There are times where he has sided with the applicant, or the appellant and has reduced things that we've proposed. There's times where he sided with us, but he weighs it on the matters, on the case. And he has an ethical obligation to do that, and I wouldn't want to question his ethics, but I have not seen him be slanted. Because the other thing is they don't ever want to be overturned on appeal either. So they have a vested interest in, because if you're always getting overturned on appeals, it gets out and you don't want to be that hearing examiner that's always being overturned.
Have there been any complaints about him?
Not about him, though.
Should we put this on the consent agenda? Consent agenda?
You don't need to.
So I guess I already signed that one. All right. All right, so our next is the trees at Allen York Park.
We have 5
the
minutes.
Discussion. Yeah, we gotta make that
Where'd the
quick.
noise go?
It doesn't go till 6 now.
It
Oh.
moved.
Yeah, it didn't move.
Yeah, they reprogrammed it.
Now it's on. Three.
I will make this quick
5
and
minutes.
short, and we will send out an email. We did do a large landscaping project when we did Bill 5. For all of our projects, there is what we call a maintenance period in which the landscape contractor is responsible for maintaining and ensuring the survival of the plants. So there were about 15 trees that died. Those trees were replaced at no expense to the city. They were replaced by the landscaper. There is an irrigation system that's installed. If you look at the pictures, I was walking through Gwendolyn, Councilmember Fulton through it. The lines you see running around there are the drip irrigation systems to irrigate the trees. We did have a few coniferous trees that did die out this year. That happens anytime you're transplanting larger trees because they grew somewhere and then you're digging up, disturbing that root structure, and then replanting it. Oh, there's your signal. We did have, there were staff members going around and supplementing water to try to give them as much opportunity to succeed as possible. We will have to replace the 8 that died, or I forget the number that had died this fall. And that I'm talking to Todd, it's gonna cost us about $200 a tree on that scale and size to go out there and replant them. So we do take the landscaping seriously. Anytime you do that much landscaping, you're gonna have die off, especially with trees, because you're disturbing the root structure. And the tree is, as large it is and it developed its root structure, you're taking a chunk of that with you, but not all of it. The other 2 larger trees that she took pictures of are in a state of shock from all the work we did to preserve them, because we dug up around them, we put in pavement and asphalt, and they're in a state of shock. We are monitoring those trees. We have a full-time arborist on staff who also has this tree risk assessment certification. His name's Kramer Green. Interesting last name for an arborist. And he is monitoring those trees. We're hoping through the winter, they'll get over their shock and start becoming a little bit healthier. If they don't, then yes, we'll have to remove them. There's already been 1 or 2 out there that we had to remove because they didn't survive. As I explained to Chair Fullerton, anytime you're trying to preserve large trees that have been in microecosystem for 50 years, and you disturb that microecosystem, you don't know how they're going to respond because they are living creatures, I guess, or living things that have their, I don't know if a mind of their own, but one tree can survive this disruption. I've said I've seen trees where we've cut 35% of the root structure out vertically and they have just done fine. And I've seen trees where we've just paved around them and they just haven't done fine. So it's, you don't know until you know. So we are
Like
monitoring.
citizens.
You don't know until you know.
You said that the landscaping was insured by the landscaper for the first year.
Yes,
And that timeline ended when?
last, and when they end.
Oh, boy.
When did
I
they
knew that
replace
date
it?
at one time.
How long
It-
ago? Like 6 months ago, a year ago?
I think probably closer to a year.
Okay, so then they replanted them
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then there's no assurance of the replanted. It's
Correct.
like you get a one time and, okay.
So now we're on the hook, I think, for like 4 or 5 coniferous trees out there that we'll have to dig up and replant.
How many had to be replaced initially?
15.
15. Okay, so it's better odds. All right.
And I don't know what, we typically expect a 10 to 15% die out anyway, when we're doing that size of landscaping. So I don't know what percentage 15 was of the entire landscaping package that we did.
So should I talk to one of you?
I'm gonna be, I wanted to brief the council first, but I'm gonna be sending an email out tomorrow to Wendy and everybody on the council on this matter.
And I don't need a lot of data on, exam.
Okay.
Those things. I think though, do we care? Do we want to try to figure out how we keep track of like that? Like the, those violations?
Curious. I'd like to see
yeah,
what
we
the
could find-
filings were, what they
since
were for, and
We're
how
not the
he.
judicial on that. I think we could probably, you know.
We do
ask
brief,
if we get that.
we do brief the public safety committee, and if in the future we have hearing examiner decisions that the committee, if that's something the committee wants to see, we can forward those on.
Okay.
They're public records. so
If you
it's-
present something to the public safety, I would be good.
Yeah, we present,
So is it part of the packet then when you brief it?
Mhm.
So I can just snoop their packet?
yeah, not the decision, but what's gone into appeal and
Okay, 6 o'clock, we're adjourned.